So my wife and I do social media together. We go by Megan and Jack on all of our socials together. My wife and I have been doing social media since together. We've been doing this since 2021. But we I started creating content back in 2019. I'm 27, so I started when I was 21, 22-ish, and started doing it for a living in 2021. Just kind of made it work in 2021. Wasn't making a whole lot of money in the beginning, but just consistently started to try and grow it with my wife. And now we're here and we were able to purchase a home with it. So that's a huge win for us. And yeah, now we continue to try and grow it consistently every day. So it's a constant battle, but it is a battle that we love doing. So yeah, that's a little bit about me in a short, brief period.
Well, that was plenty. And again, I think that there's some similarities and some parallels, even with being a real estate wealth specialist like myself. We're always trying to grow. You grow content, right?
Hmm.
Grow loyal customers, and
Hmm.
I think knowledge. And so we're similar in that regard. Um, you guys have done such a great job. I'm going to hit you with just a couple of questions, and here's one that wasn't even on my mind. It just popped in with this whole craziness with TikTok. How has
Hmm.
that affected you and your income, or has it, or will it, or can it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm not gonna deny that it won't affect our income, but I will say that TikTok is at a really weird spot overall. And if you're starting content right now and you're trying to grow on TikTok, it's just a weird space right now because there's so many problems with it.
Okay.
And I think you're gonna run into more issues than anything right now until it either gets sold or something, because you can't even download it right now.
Okay.
So to me, it's been out of the equation for like 6 months, but that's because my wife and I, we always just kind of try to stay ahead of things. And if we're wrong, then we're wrong,
Right.
but we try to just pre-plan for things. And we've been planning on TikTok being gone for a long time now,
Okay.
because back in 2021, when I started, it actually got banned for a full day. I don't know if anyone remembers that.
Okay.
And there was a bunch of creators sobbing on the app, yada yada. And then the next year, the same thing happened. So at that point, I was just like, I always kind of just held on to it with kind of like a who knows what's going to happen with it.
Okay.
But yeah, it'll affect us, but nothing dramatic. I mean, I think you guys know, since y'all are in the real estate industry, that I mean, money doesn't disappear; it just transfers to different areas. And same with attention. Attention doesn't disappear; it just transfers to other areas. People will say they're going to stop scrolling on social media, but that's not going to happen.
Right.
Not anytime soon.
Right. And because you're so, I think for a young gentleman, Jack, I think you know the respect I have for you. I think you're always looking at what's next. So what's next? If it's not TikTok, do you just grow your followers in the other platforms, or is there something now you've got your eye on that maybe we're not aware of?
Yeah, so I personally think Meta is number one. And
Yeah.
I think people are, I don't want to say like sleeping on that would be the right term. I guess it's a younger person term, would be sleeping on that.
Yeah.
But a lot of people I think are kind of ignoring that right now, that Meta is, especially Instagram Meta, is like number one for growth right now. And
Okay.
especially as from a real estate perspective, I think that there is a lot of opportunity for that. But it's not going to be, you get on there and you say, "Hey, here's how you're going to succeed as a realtor," or "Here's how the market's doing right now." That just won't perform well. Um, you have to do something that goes along with like today's generation as well. Like, and it could be skits or like a comedic aspect to it.
Okay.
There's a few real estate people that I've actually seen on there. I don't know
Okay.
if any of y'all seen that video with the one lady who did like, "Here's how I would play like hide and go seek in this
Yes.
listing." Have you
Yes.
seen
I
that
saw
one?
it. Yeah. I saw it.
I think that was so clever how she did that.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that did for her traction wise on her properties, but I know that it built her following up.
Indeed.
Um, so
Indeed. Okay. So followers. nice transition. How can again, as real estate professionals, how can we grow our followers really organically without having to pay? Because I would
Mhm.
not do that.
Mhm.
Would you even suggest that?
Paying for followers? No,
Yes.
no, no,
Yeah.
no. You'll get nothing for that. I
Yes.
mean, the
Right.
only thing you're gonna get for that is a boost in your ego for 3 minutes, and
Yes.
then after that, it's gonna be pointless.
Right.
Um, yeah, I think there is people that I have met who do that, and I think that it's just because they're like, oh, I've been doing this for 4 months, 5 months, and I haven't seen anything, so I'm gonna buy 10,000 followers, 50,000 followers. But
Right.
like I said, there's no benefit to that whatsoever.
I didn't think
Uh,
so.
yeah, no, 3,000 people that actually follow you is way more valuable than 100,000 that don't give a shit. So,
Right. Right.
yep.
Wonderful. All right. So tell us exactly what's a brand influencer?
What is a brand influencer? What do you mean by
Yeah.
that? Can you explain a little
Yeah.
bit
Well,
more?
again, that's what I labeled you, right?
Okay.
Like I had no idea what that even was, right? Or how you even drive an income. And I think most don't know. So tell us briefly, again, you basically,
Hmm.
with all the content that you create, you basically get paid by companies, right?
Yes. Yep.
And you just mentioned one that we should keep our eye on, and I know that's a client of yours. So tell us again, how does that work? And can you share with us maybe who your biggest 4 or 5 clients are?
Yeah. So, essentially, like an easy way to understand what my wife and I do, like when it comes to content creators in general, but is we are like, I want to say like a really tiny marketing business.
Mhm.
And that's basically the business that we're in, is we have grown our audience to a point where brands now reach out to us and want to work with us along the lines of like our biggest one we've had overall is Meta. So I was talking about how Meta is number one. Meta Quests, though, I don't know if you guys know the VR headsets.
Yes.
Those are cool. I like those a lot. Some people get really sick with them. Just kind of depends on how you deal with it. That's probably our number one brand. We've worked with other brands like we worked with Paramount, which is the new Gladiator movie that just came out. We worked with, let's see, Funko Pop, if you guys know what that is. This is my wife with a mustache that I made.
Okay.
Um, and let's see, we worked with keyboard company, um, because we do like gaming, that type of thing. Those are some of the top brands that we
So
worked
in
with.
Stouffer's, didn't you guys work with Stouffer's Foods?
We did work with Stouffer's. Yep, we
Okay.
did work with
Okay. Because
Stouffer's.
I saw
It's funny
the
that you mentioned. I
logo.
remember you talked about how much you loved that. You were like, "Oh man, I love me some good Stouffer's," and I was like, "That's the most Ben thing I've ever heard in my life." I love it. No, but yeah, those are the type of companies we work with, and basically the brands just reach out to us and they ask us to promote that brand within our content somehow.
Mhm.
Um, and so they just pay us a flat rate fee, or sometimes we get a fee with commission as well. But most of the time, yeah, it's just a fee, and then we promote that and post it on our page.
Is there a do you actually go after, companies or companies just come after you?
Yeah, so in the beginning, it was a lot of like hunting for brands, you could say. And I almost like equate it to like, if you're door knocking or something in the beginning, as a real estate person. And I don't know much about real estate, but I know a little bit. And I know that that's a thing that some people do. So yeah, I guess you could say I was doing that in the beginning. But then we're fortunate enough to where we're at a size now where we don't have to.
Yes.
And brands come to us. So we're kind of spoiled in that regard. But yeah, it's usually brands come to us. But if we see a brand that we like, absolutely we'll reach out to them and try to work with them.
I know we talked about a car company, so let's go get
Mhm.
it, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yep. That's
And then
that's
make
it's
sure.
really funny. We were talking to someone about marketing in the marketing department at a dealership here. I don't know what that would entail, but I don't know if they'd be like, "Here's a car. That'd be great. Awesome. I'd love a car." But I don't think that'd be the case. But you never know. Some people get that. Some people get cars.
Well, I think maybe that's something you and I should work on because just last week, one of my clients is with Mercedes-Benz, and clearly, I
Mhm.
have one, and so I think that's something you and I can put our heads together on. So let's do it. Just saying,
Okay. Okay.
we'll make this happen. I'm telling you.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
All right. So let's see. In your space,
Hmm.
let's just hit you with some basic questions.
Yeah.
What's one of the biggest mistakes you've made year to date in this space that might have either cost you a setback or some income or just I don't know, mentally that it made you step back. Is there anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely there's one thing for sure. We put trust in the wrong people in the beginning. My wife and I, especially when we first started, were very blind to the reality of the business world because we weren't business savvy by any means, and we're still not insanely business savvy. Um, we trusted a company that we worked with, and they ended up owing us a lot of money. It was about, I think, about 85,000, and they ended up going bankrupt, and we never got that. So that was an issue that we dealt with in 2022.
Okay.
So yeah, that was a big chunk that was unfortunate. So trust, I think, was a big one because we just kind of blindly signed something we probably shouldn't have,
Right.
if that makes sense. And then they ended up taking the money that we made, some of the money we made with them. So,
Well, you and I both know how trust is just vital to what you do, and I think what I do.
mhm,
One, I
mhm.
appreciate you and Megan in trusting me, right, to help you on this end. So, um, let's see, Jack. I'm sure there's a couple of questions that have come through, and I'll make sure that I'll give us a few minutes at the end to maybe you can address those. Um, is there a strategy that I don't know that you guys use, I guess, to continue at this point to scale and grow your business and your income and your followers? Or is there something you follow?
So it's never it's always changing.
Mhm.
And I feel like, every 3 months, the algorithms of all the apps change, if I'm being
Okay.
completely honest.
Okay.
And so it's a constant adaptation, and you have to figure out what's working. And I feel like you have to almost reset and go over what's working for you and what isn't every 3 months. You need to look back on your content. We definitely, our content is very interesting though, because my wife and I are really big on, we record a lot of stuff throughout the day, and only 10% of that I would say actually gets used. And so because a lot of our stuff is a lot of moments
Mhm.
or a lot of things we do, so it gets to the point where, a lot of our life there is a lot of camera involved in it. Not all of it. We definitely make sure of that. But yeah, I think that content changes all the time of what works and what doesn't for everyone.
Right. I I follow you, and
I appreciate that, Ben. Thank you.
I
It'd be hilarious if you didn't. It'd be
right.
hilarious if you were like, yeah, I actually don't follow you. I don't like your
I know, right?
content.
And I think you guys follow me, same back. So,
Yeah.
and I think that one thing that it's just, I think connectivity is so important with what
Hmm.
you guys do. And you and Megan have so much fun, and she's got a laugh that's just infectious. So if
Hmm.
you guys haven't, you will now follow these guys. And I think that's why you resonate with not just young people, but again, I'm an old head, right?
Hmm.
And some of the stuff I see you guys put out is just so funny, and I'm laughing at it. And I think that you have to have the ability to be laughed at and laughed with, in
Hmm.
order for all these people to love you and follow you
Hmm.
like they do. Wouldn't you
Yep.
agree?
Absolutely. I think a big factor, I say this to all my friends that are trying to do content, and because I beg my friends to try to do content because it's still such an untapped space. And people don't think that. People think that it's oversaturated. What do I do? Blah, blah, blah. Nah, it's really just getting started. It
Yeah.
really is.
Yeah.
And I think that, a lot of people struggle with is they struggle with, like, the judgment of their friends and family. They worry that when they start doing content, oh, my friends and family will judge me. And the reality is they will. They
Yes.
will judge you, absolutely. And my brother, when I first started content, told me that he didn't like my content to my face. And he wasn't rude about it. He just said, I don't like it. And I was like, thanks, man. I appreciate that. And you have to ignore those people close to you for
Yeah.
sure. And it sucks. Not everyone's going to be like that to you, but some people will.
Right. Well, I think again, there's so many similarities because I tell folks all the time, when you get into this real estate space, we
Hmm.
always talk about growing your database with your friends and your family, but understand this, your friends and family will never buy a home from you until they start to see an evidence of success. Because
Hmm.
typically they're not going to trust you. But all
Hmm.
of a sudden, when they see that you're working with Jack and you're working with Kendra and you're working with ESG, and they start to see that, then all of a sudden they'll circle back and go, "Oh, hey, Jack, so I looks like things are going well." Then you're starting to gain their trust, right? And then
Hmm.
the real estate will happen, but it won't happen until. So you see the exact same thing in your space. So
Hmm.
I appreciate you sharing that. So, before we get to one of the a couple of the questions, there's probably something else. What what advice? Because I think that real estate professionals today, now again, when I started before you guys were even born, none of this existed, right? The
Hmm.
social media, none of that even existed. So many of us are afraid to get in front of the camera because we struggle with content because it's constant with real estate professionals. So, is there some advice that you could share with this audience today? Is it just get started, or where would you go?
No, because just get started is what everyone says. That's
Yes.
how I look at it. And I think that you have to use what you have to your advantage. And I think for some of the people in here that are like over the age of 50, for example, you have something that a lot of people don't have, which is the younger generation will actually, you may not think it, but they actually do look up to you more than you think. And you can use that to your advantage by almost tapping into like their lingo, tapping into their humor and figuring out their humor a bit. And if you use that, I've seen a lot of people like in their 60s do really well on social media. There's a man that I know, I'm more of an acquaintance, not really a friend, but he's 74 and he's does extremely well. He has like 3.4 million followers on YouTube, subscribers on YouTube, and he does gaming content. He's not really a big gamer, but he does gaming content because he knew it would work well with the younger audience, and he's also a veteran, so it kind of plays hand in hand there. With he plays like combat games, that type of thing, and he just started kind of. I talked to him, and he just kind of figured out the younger generation lingo. He didn't change who he was.
Right.
Um, it just kind of tapped into that, and I thought that was really smart. Granted, he doesn't need to do it for a living, but he does because
Yes.
he's retired. Um, so I think figuring that out is figuring out what can work well for you, and I think for a lot of the women as well in here, I think there's a lot of advice you could give to younger women as well, and use that to your advantage if you're a business savvy woman. That there is a lot of women out there looking for women like you. And I think that if you give advice, structure it right, I think that there's a lot of women that would follow you for that.
Wonderful. Thanks for that advice because I think not everybody on here is mature as I am, but again, I think your point is valid. Is that we do have something to offer, right?
Absolutely.
And we assume that these kids they don't understand us. We can't connect, and that's
Hmm.
just not true. So
Hmm.
I appreciate that. Um, there were a couple of questions there. Can you read or Christina, can you recite maybe a few questions that Jack might be able to answer quickly before we leave?
Yes, sure. Um, how do you market the page to get followers?
So I actually don't even really think about that. As weird as that sounds, I don't really think about market the page to get followers. So I will say, I guess a good way to put this is views is not always best. So my wife and I early in the game thought views were the thing you needed to get. It's not necessarily what you need to get. Yes, you need views to grow, but a video where my wife and I are talking to the camera, engaging with the camera like it's a person and like it's people watching us. This is like my number one thing for following. If we get 500,000 views on a video where we're engaging, I'm like, hey guys, I want y'all's opinion on what my wife does here, as opposed to a goofy trend. I'm not engaging with the audience at all. I'm just doing something that gets 10 million views. You'll get way more engagement, way more followers, way more people to engage on something that has 500,000 views and you're talking to the camera, as opposed to something that has 10 million and you're not. So I guess that's kind of how you can market for an audience. And I think there's a lot of business guys out there that do that really well. I don't know y'all's opinion on this guy, but Alex Hormozy, great example of someone who talks to the camera and engages with his audience. He might have some questionable, beliefs, but he still does that really well.
Wonderful.
And do you guys write the content on behalf of the brand, or do they provide the copy that they want you to use?
Yeah, so 95% of the time we write the content.
Okay.
Where we are at a point now where we can almost be like, hey, this is what we want to do. And we will work around what the brand needs us to do if we need to say certain things. But yeah, and for the most part, we write the content.
Okay, and how do you write the content for multiple brands and tie it into your own personalities?
Interesting. Well, that's actually a tough kind of question because it is hard to tie it into our personalities a lot of times. I guess I don't really know how to answer that one. I think it's we just kind of figure it out. I think there's some things that we do that we just do. I know that's kind of a really bad answer. Sorry. But I think we just figure it out how to tie it in our personalities naturally.
Do you have like a, I don't know, you sit down in the morning and you just have a meeting about like, okay, what does the week look
Mhm.
like, or what do we want
Mhm.
to focus on, and just kind of like write it out?
Yeah, so I'm sure as many of y'all know, everyone here is essentially working for themselves, self-employed, I'm assuming.
Yes.
And with that, you have to do that. You have to go over your week. You have to go over your day every day. You have to set a schedule for yourself, or else you will just fail. I mean, you just will. Maybe if you get lucky, you won't for a little bit. But yes, we absolutely have to, or else we just won't get work done.
Jack, it's a business, right? It's not
It's
a
a
hobby,
business. Yep.
right? And I think that's the reason why so many real estate professionals fail, and the numbers vary. I've seen last year the numbers were 46%, and I just saw someone
Mhm.
record over 70% of real estate professionals didn't sell one home last year. I like to
Mhm.
think that's because most of those folks treat this as a hobby, and it's not a hobby.
Mhm.
It's a career that I've been serious about forever. So I think you see the same thing. So
Mhm.
Um,
anything
Exactly.
else?
yeah, there's a couple more. Is there a certain number or minimum of number of followers that brands want you to have in order to work with you?
I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit on my end. Can you repeat the question for me?
Is there a certain number of followers that brands want you to have in order to work with you?
No, you don't need to worry about that. So my wife and I, we have a decent amount of followers on Instagram and YouTube, and stuff. But for example, my wife and I are at 1.9 million on Instagram right now, but we have friends who do more than 500,000 a year in revenue, and they have 180,000 followers. And so it really doesn't matter. It doesn't. Your numbers don't. I mean, I've got friends who 50,000 followers. Yes, you have to have a little bit. Obviously, you have to have, above a certain number. Um, but they 50,000 followers and they still have a six-figure big business. Um, and so I think that it's not as important as some people think. And sometimes you'll see people who have huge numbers who don't make near as much money as you think because of their type of content. So what matters more is your engagement. How engages your audience with you? How much do they follow what you do?
Hmm. Then we have a 22-year-old who's
Mhm.
wondering how to like try and build his social media presence, and how you would engage with your audience at that age.
Yeah. At 22, that's around when I started. Well, I would try to figure out what you're good at. And what I mean by that is like, what's one of your natural talents, I would say, and kind of dive into that. One thing that, my wife and I have always had together was people always thought we were really funny. We would go on double dates. We would go and do things like that. And they were always like, y'all are just hilarious. And so figuring out how to tap into what people tell you naturally, maybe someone says, hey, you're a really good looking person. Maybe tap into the fact that you work out all the time, you know? Or, oh, hey, you're really funny. I would tap into that. Um, or maybe you're really good at sports or something. There's plenty of content you could do around that. Now, if you're talking about tying it into your real estate stuff, I don't know if I have that much advice on how to tie those two together, just because I'm not in the space. But my suggestion as a 22-year-old would be to truly figure out what one of your strengths is that you're confident about. You don't need to be funny. You also don't need to be entertaining as a person because you can edit to make it entertaining. Mr. Beast is a prime example of someone who's not entertaining and not funny, but he's the #1 YouTuber in the world. And he has a great team and he's extremely smart. And so that's how he works it.
How do you make money? How do they pay out? Tiffany,
How
can
do
you elaborate on that a little bit?
I think I know what they mean. Like, how do I make money and how do they like just how do I
Yep.
make money? Okay. Yep. Yeah, Tiffany, the way we make money is brands pay us a fee. So, they'll say, hey, here's a certain amount of money we want to, to post our product, like Funko Pop, for example. And they just usually pay it out. It's usually 90 days later. And they do it via bank transfer. We have a management company now that does the money for us and kind of handles all of that, like the financial aspect of it. And
Okay. Is it per views or watch the
no,
whole video or anything
no.
like
So when you get to a certain point with it, it's not per view. It's not even a sort of video. You'll see some people do brand deals that, maybe their average engagement is 400, 500,000 views and their ad gets 80,000. The brand doesn't care because the brand wants your face on it for the most part. And then they push it for the most part.
And then what advice would you give someone to reach their first 10,000 followers? What are the biggest differences you see between TikTok algorithm and YouTube or
Yeah, IG, YouTube, TikTok. So IG and TikTok, pretty similar. YouTube's a whole different algorithm. YouTube is a whole different ballgame. YouTube is tougher in the aspect of you need to clickbait a little bit harder. And what that means is you could, your title would be something like, this is the most dramatic thing I've ever done, or this is one of the most insane experiences of my life. As opposed to on Instagram, you could be like, this was really hilarious, or this was funny. Someone reaching their first 10K followers on there, I would recommend you go through your feed, you scroll through 150 videos, and you find 5 people out of those 150 videos that you like the most. That's what you need to find. 5 people that are doing good that you like the most. Because if you try to create your own lane in social media, you have a 0.01% success rate. If you try to create your own lane. If you do create your own lane, congratulations, you just made something awesome happen. But most likely not going to happen. You'll try to create your own lane and then it will fizzle out and it won't work. If you use I don't want to say copy the person, but use their format, their editing style, and maybe some of the topics they're talking about, and make it your own. I would say absolutely copy when it comes to editing styles from people. Use the same exact editing style, or pay someone on Fiverr $25 or $20 and say, hey, do this editing for me. People do that no problem. It's not as expensive as you think. And that's what I would recommend is scrolling through and finding people that you're like, okay, I really like their content. I would love to do something like them. Watch their videos, use their format, and do your personality in it.
Mm-hmm.
This could go on.
There's still stuff coming in.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Let's take one. Let's take 1 or 2 more because again, we're busy professionals. We got things to do, and this also is a free Zoom. So,
yeah, is there a way to study the algorithms to perform better than others?
Is there a way to study the algorithms to perform better than others? No, I don't think so. I think that in the beginning, when you're starting out content, I don't even understand the algorithm. And I've been doing it for 5 years. And I don't. It's like, I guess that would be like, I mean, maybe y'all know this. I don't. But when people ask you like, hey, what's the housing market going to do? It's like, do you even really know the answer to that? I could be wrong. Maybe you do. Maybe you do. But well, I don't feel like it's that. You do, Ben, because you're the best, obviously. Absolutely. Yeah. But I would assume for the most part, nothing's 100%. You don't know for sure what's going to happen, and it could change at any moment. Some weird law could get changed, and then you're like, well, crap. So I think that algorithms, worrying about, oh, this is the algorithm, and also I want to say, be careful watching the people that say, here's how my top 10 tips on how to grow on Instagram, because you can go into a really bad trap watching those people, because I did that in the beginning, and it will hurt you because those people are not necessarily trying to help you as much as you think. They're just trying to monetize off of what they're doing. They're using that as a hook to make you watch it, And most likely they have something they are selling you, I will say.
I think find your lane, Jack.
Find your lane.
Say that, right? And worry about that. Don't worry about the other stuff, because it'll take care of itself, correct?
It will. Consistency pays off in everything.
Yes.
If you're actually being somewhat smart about it, you're researching it, and you're consistent, it will pay off in this game. It takes a while, or maybe it won't take a while for you. But I did it for about 2.5 years before I really even saw good traction, if that tells you anything. So,
Jack,
how long does it take you to edit your videos nowadays?
Oh, it doesn't take long. At most, it takes an hour. At most. But for the most part, 30 minutes. And any long form videos we do on YouTube, that's just we pay someone to do it. So, but if you're talking about those videos, that'll take you probably 2-3 hours at least.
Wow. Okay. That last question, I see it from Wesley. Hit it, Christina. What does that say?
What's a good standard of posting? 1 reel a day?
Yeah, absolutely. You have to make it a habit. Absolutely. And I think that I forgot, I want to say it's the book is called Like One Thing with Keller Williams. Is that right? Yeah. So I remember reading that book when I was like 19. And I remember somewhere in there, it talked about like building a habit on something. I'm not sure if it's the right book that I'm thinking of. Plenty of books out there talking about habits. The benefit of posting once a day and creating content once a day is, even if the content is trash, you're building that muscle. And that muscle is so important in this game.
I love
it. Really, really is. Because at the end of the day, if you say, I'm just going to take off Saturday, Sunday, I'm like, okay, well, good luck starting Monday, because most likely Monday, you're going to be like, well, I'm only at 300 followers. It's not that big of a deal. I don't have people waiting on me. Maybe I'll just post Tuesday. You got to make it once a day. I recommend it for sure.